So I'd like to welcome Cody Johnson from EZ Lawn and Landscape to the Lawn Care Business Success podcast. Hey, Cody, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. I really do appreciate it. You reached out a few months ago, volunteering yourself, very brave to come onto the podcast. So I do appreciate that. Usually I'm, having to hunt out people to do it. So that's awesome that you were willing to come on.
Yeah, I've never done nothing like this, so I thought it'd be a cool experience.
Awesome. So I just maybe out of your comfort zone a little bit. There you go. That's awesome. So let's just get right into the questions. So maybe tell us a bit about yourself and your business.
Well, as he said before, my name's Cody Johnson. Name of the business is EZ Lawn and Landscape. And I've been in business now for 4 years. And the first 3 was part-time. And 2018 was my first full year in business.
Awesome.
So got a lot to look forward to.
That's awesome. So my next question, I think you kind of answered there partly, and that is lawn care your main income, or is it a side hustle?
It is my main income at the moment, yes. Well, I say at the moment, but it will be forever. For 3 years, it was a part-time gig, and I worked really, really strenuous full-time positions. Was a delivery driver working like 65 hours a week trying to maintain 25 plus yards.
Wow.
And that was tough. I was burning the candle at both ends, so to speak.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then lo and behold, I got fired.
What?
And that pushed me out into this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. So you said there that you were a delivery driver and you were doing the lawn care on the side, doing about 25 yards. So what first attracted you to lawn care in the first place? What made you want to start a lawn care business, especially when you're already working a job at the time?
It's funny. Nothing really attracted me to it.
Okay.
When we moved into this house, where we come from previously, I had a tiny little yard. And when I say tiny, I was weed eating the entire yard until I got me a push mower. And then we moved to this place, and I've got about 1.5 acres of land.
Nice.
And it was way too big to push mow. So I was making pretty decent money at my job, and I went and bought a Kubota residential zero turn, like 54 inch, kind of small for us. And I said, well, shoot, I'll just pick up a couple yards to pay for it. And off to the races we went. And first year I was mowing 2 or 3. And then the next year it was like 8 or 9. And then the third year it was like 18, 19. And then it kept going from there and turned into a business.
Oh, that's awesome. And pretty neat there that you would buy a mower for your own yard, but then think immediately, how about I do a couple of other yards so I can pay for this thing? That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have any, sorry, go ahead.
Like I said, I had zero experience in this business. And like the extent of cutting grass was mowing round and round in circles at my grandfather's house.
That's
for a whole lot of years. Like I had to learn how to do all this stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. So in your lawn care business, do you have any employees, or are you a one-man operation?
For the most part, I'm a one-man operation. The end of this year, last year, got a little hectic, and I ended up hiring a part-timer 3 days a week just because I flat out couldn't keep up. Going into 2019, I think I'm going to stay solo for the most part. Of course, some of the bigger landscape projects, I bring in some hired help just to do some of the heavy lifting. But as far as an actual employee, I think I'm going to hold off on them for a couple more years and just kind of solidify myself and my business running solo before I go off adding a bunch of people and making things crazy and can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's sounds like a very solid plan to build up the foundation of your business, and before you start going everywhere in every direction. Um, as you probably know, I've mentioned on the podcast as well that I'm 100% solo, have always been, and I've never had the desire to add employees. I've just seen um, issues with other people with their businesses, with employees not showing up and stuff like that. And for me, um, and this will lead into the next question. For me, my definition of success is the freedom that I get. And having an employee, I always see as having less freedom. And that may be a short-term thinking,
Mhm.
because maybe over the long term, it would give me more freedom to have employees. But over the short term, I always think, I got to babysit this person and always be, there, and all that sort of stuff. So as I said, that leads into that next question. And that is, how would you, Cody Johnson, define success?
Ooh. So I've been thinking on this question for a little while. The freedom is a big part of it. Um, I was when I was working at Pepsi. I
Yeah.
did have some freedom because I worked by myself, but I still had people to answer to, job to do, this, that, and the other. Of course, finances come into play a little bit. I mean, of course, you want to, in part of being successful, some money will come along with it.
Hmm.
But the freedom is a huge thing. So, for instance, November 8th, my wife was in a car accident, totaled her
Okay.
car, and she broke her hip.
Mm.
And she was down for basically a month and a half. And I had to take up her duties around the house with the kids,
Hmm.
plus work. And just now that we're on the other side of it, I'm so grateful and thankful that I work for myself, because I wasn't tied to having to go clock in somewhere, worry about making phone calls, say I need to leave early or I can come in today, sucking up vacation time. And it's just, I wouldn't have had that freedom if I'm not doing this.
Hmm.
And to me, that's a part of
Yeah,
it. So
that's awesome.
my mission for success may change 5 years down the road, but
Yeah,
as of
yeah.
right now,
Yeah, so I can totally relate to that. This past year has been quite a challenge for me with my both parents getting quite ill, and me being able to take that time, because of the flexibility, that freedom that lawn care offers, to be able to go there, put everything else aside, and say, "Hey, this is the priority right now. I can, move or shuffle these lawns around and go help." Give my parents, a helping hand, get them through this tough time, and then come back to it. So just I can totally relate to you and your wife's thing. How's she doing now?
she's good. She's
Oh,
healing up pretty good. And unfortunately, with a hip, no matter your age, it's just a slow heal.
yeah, yeah,
She was on
yeah,
crutches for quite a while, but she's off of them now.
yeah. Though anything, I think, in that hip and leg region, it can take a while. I remember my daughter getting her leg broken. She had both bones broken completely, playing soccer. And even being at the time, I think she was about 14 or so when it happened. And the doctor saying, it's literally like that area of your body is like literally the slowest growing bones, and it will take like a year for it to fully completely, because we were used to the kids breaking their arms and things like that, and it's like 6 weeks and you're good. And they're like, no, 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 this is different. It's going to take a long time for that bone to fully get back to thing. So I can imagine a hip would be just a
Yeah,
pretty
she's been a little discouraged because it does, she's looking at a year before she can resume all normal activities,
yes,
exercise,
yeah.
and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, I really got to wait that long, but
Yeah, yeah.
got to
Yeah,
make sure.
it seems like a long time, but it's funny how quickly it does pass in
No,
the end. In the end, it's crazy. I know when, like I said, when my daughter broke her leg, it was like, oh, this is gonna, a year. This is crazy. And now it's been like 3 years already since it happened, and it's like, wow, that just flew by, right? So, in your lawn care business, what type of equipment do you use?
Well,
as far as like size of mowers and things like that, so we can get an idea of like I always talk about 90% of my mows are like with a 21-inch mower. So
hearing you talk about the size of your properties and the size of your equipment, I'm just like, wow. Because I run a 60-inch mower. I
wow.
do have a 21-inch for the handful of back gates that I go through. Um, the problem is most of the backyards are almost just as big as the front yard. So
Wow.
this year I'm actually thinking about adding a stand-on mower with a touch smaller deck
Oh,
um,
okay.
to get through the back gates and to tackle some smaller yards. I'm kind of
Mhm.
getting them 3 and 4 acre yards kind of wear you down when you're by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Three or
I've
four acres. Can't even imagine 3 or 4 acre yards.
got,
That's
I've got one property that is 3 acres of sod. It is the most beautiful yard you've ever laid eyes on, but it takes me 4.5, 5 hours by myself from the
on
time I
that
let
on that big machine.
on that big machine. Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. That just like blows my mind. I think the most you talked about, the 1 acre that you bought, and push mowing would be, too much for that. And it reminded me of that the story I tell about one of the craziest things that happened to me in lawn care, where I went to go. Where that lady at Home Depot asked me to go quote her lawn, and then I went, and her husband was like 90 years old, and he opened the door and he passed out when I was talking to him. But it was a 1 acre plot of land, and all I had was my 21-inch mower, and I was like, green in the industry, I was like, I'm getting this job, I don't care. And it took me, I think, 4 hours to push mow that that lawn. It was crazy. So I can't imagine doing, even on a big machine, if you're saying it's taking that 4 hours, just like, that's crazy on a big machine. I always sit in the evenings watching TV, and my TV is 60 inches, and I'm always like, I can't even imagine that being the deck on the deck on a mower, and that's what you're cutting with. That's just insane.
The crazy thing about that one property is it grows so fast that I have to double cut all 3 acres every year.
Wow.
It's like
Wow.
8 inches of growth when I go over there in 7 days. Like it's nuts.
That is crazy. I've got a few like that are just, they grow so fast, but but because they're small, and with the 21, you're just bagging it, so there's no need to double cut it. But that's just insane. So
I've,
60, and so when you say you're thinking about adding a smaller mower, smaller like stand on, what are you talking about there? As far as like what size is, what do you consider a small?
uh, more than likely it's going to be a 52. We don't get a no.
That's funny.
Possibly a 48.
Okay.
I've I've got some properties. I do got a couple of real small properties that are just kind of, I can cut them with the 60, but they're more work with the bigger mower. I could
Yeah.
beat a little faster with a smaller mower. Um, I've got one property in particular. I have a friend of mine meet me over there every week to mow it because he's got a 52-inch walk behind and he can fit through the gate.
Okay.
But it's such a beautiful property and I get really good money for it. I don't want to let it go. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to end up adding the mower for the time being, even if I don't get a lot of use out of it. I will later on because
Yeah. Yeah.
at some point I will expand, add employees,
Yeah.
and prepping for that future. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definite if you can, if your business can justify the cost of it, um, and not be putting you into debt where it's not being used. But it's awesome to have different mowers, and if you have the trailer space and stuff to have the different mowers for those particular properties makes a huge difference. I know, I'm always stuck between the two mowers that I have. It's either the 21-inch mower, which is fine for most of them, but in a lot of cases, even some of the backyards that I do I'm like, man, like it's a lot of work to do with a 21, but I can't get the 36-inch walk behind into the backyard because of whether the gate's too small, or there might be a couple of stairs or something like that. And it's like, then I'm stuck doing it with this 21 going, this is like so inefficient, right? So I end up, charging them a lot more for it. And they're, they're fine paying it. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, man, I could be like, it's always a slow point in the week when I get to those properties. It's like, man, I got to get through this one, right? I got to push mow this one, right? So it's always tough. So it'd be, it's awesome if you can get different mowers for specific things like that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I've kind of been planning ahead for that because towards the end of the year last year, I upgraded to a 16-foot trailer over a 10-foot.
Yeah. So that's, that's a lot of, I was actually like thinking about this the other day. I was watching one of Martin from Mowing and Growing in Australia. I was watching his videos, and he's got like now he's got the big Toro ride-on mower. It might be like a 60-inch, and then he's got the stand-on mower, and then he's got the walker, and he's got the 30-inch Toro commercial. Then he's got the 21-inch, and I'm like, the guy's got like now he's set up with all these different mowers for every different scenario property that he has. I'm like, that's
he's got a lot of grass to mow too.
Yeah, he has acres and acres of grass to mow. So what is your favorite tool and why?
Oh man, I just recently got an 8010 Echo.
Oh, okay.
Got it back in November, and luckily I was the second person to get it in my dealer, and I'm still like one of three in my area to have one.
Okay.
And that thing is just, it's nuts.
Yeah.
And it's slowly become my favorite piece of equipment because when it comes to leaves, it's like, I don't know, you can't compare it.
Yeah.
Prior to that, one of my second favorites in my stable is the handheld Echo, the 2520.
Okay.
It's so nice for those quick, 1-2 minute jobs on the sidewalk. So yeah, my blowers are probably my favorite tool.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I can relate with that. The handheld, I use that as my main blower throughout the year because my properties are so small that it's not worth it for me to take out a big blower until the fall when the leaves are falling. So I love that 2520. I use that for all the sort of weekly maintenance.
And believe it or not, you're the reason I bought it.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I remember they sent me when Echo sent that to me originally. It was a prototype that they sent about it was like 6 months or so before they released it, and it was kind of neat to be able to use that. And then when it finally went on sale to the public, I was mowing one of my customers' properties, and the neighbor across the street was mowing, and he pulled out a 2520. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, man. I was like testing that thing out to see if it was ready for prime time. And now, there's regular people out there using them. So I was like, that's pretty cool. That 8010 is insane. That thing is crazy. I got to see one in person for the first time during the last UAG meeting. Yeah, so that 8010 is just crazy. That the first time I got to use it was at the Echo UAG meeting, and it just looks so massive. When you walk up to it, you're like, that thing's gonna weigh a ton, and then you lift it, and it's the same. Apparently, it's the exact same weight as the 770. And it's because of that carbon fiber fan shroud and the framing and stuff. So it's so deceiving because it's like, I remember the 770, they had it on the table, and that was their biggest blower up till that point. And then they had the 8010 beside it, and it literally almost looked half the height as the 8010. It's just like the thing. And then you take that tube, and it's like a tree trunk. It's like, it's just.
I have a 770, a well-worn 770 I bought brand new 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a great blower. Still is a good blower.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine's got two 770s, and I helped him the other day. We was just blowing off the parking lot. And you know that feeling when you're in a slow car and you're going up the hill and you're like shaking?
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got running the 770 over the 80.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's crazy. That's funny. So, do you offer any other services that are not lawn care or landscaping related, like power washing, window cleaning, or anything like that, for example?
I do not. Um,
Okay.
I've often thought about adding power washing. I don't know how, the biggest thing well, one, I know plenty of great guys around here that pressure wash. I've actually got a guy that pushes my snow for me that runs a
Okay.
pressure washing only business. Um, my hang up on doing it is I don't know how people feel about you using their water when you're charging them. So
Okay.
because of that reason, I kind of haven't pursued it to maybe clean customers' houses or something like that. So the pressure washing's still up in the air. But as far as that, no, I kind of stick to your home and your grass. If I
Okay.
can do that.
Do you do like fertilizing and stuff, or is it just strictly mowing?
Yeah, I do it granular. I did
Okay.
go last year and get my pesticide license, which covers liquid fertilizers, but I haven't
Oh,
dove into it yet.
okay.
I'm kind of scared, to be honest.
Yeah,
You,
I did I do fertilizers and liming and moss control. Here where I'm from, basically uh the applicator's license you need for anything that will kill anything. But
mhm.
fertilizers and things like that you don't need the license for. Um so I got the license, and then the city almost immediately started phasing out the use of pesticides and stuff. So I just kind of phased it out myself and stopped offering that part of it, and only offering like organic things and regular fertilizers and granular stuff. Just found
See,
it.
around here, you don't have to have a license for fertilizers, but for like weed killer, Roundup, anything of that nature, if you're getting paid, you have to have a license.
Okay.
And yeah, I've heard so many horror stories about guys getting caught and huge fines. And then I
Yes.
went to class, and it's one investigator that services like 22 counties. So
Oh
the
wow.
odds of getting caught was slim to none, but I'd rather
Yeah.
be legal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just one more thing to that you can advertise, and
absolutely.
it gives you that edge above the competition, that you're licensed, that you have everything in place. It just gives you that professional edge, which I always like. Um, so, what type of work do you offer, and what type of work do you prefer? And I mean here, like commercial or residential, and why?
I've got a I've got a mix. I'm mostly residential. I do have 3 or 4 commercial accounts. They're smaller commercials like convenience stores, uh, mom and pop businesses, stuff of that
Yep.
nature. Um, the I prefer the residential, and a lot of the same reason that a lot of people do. You know, you're working with the same person over and over. It's not a lot of turnover as with a residential customer. You're able to build those relationships, and a lot of times you get to cut nicer properties versus commercial. Because around here, a lot of commercial properties are junk, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but the commercials are good for um, like 12-month contracts. So
Okay.
I like having that mix to have some of that money coming in year round versus just all the money coming in 7-8 months out of the year. So for that reason, I like to keep a mix.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And then
that's
some of the commercial properties will come with like residential homes and stuff like that. So like one of my property, I take care of their businesses, but I take care of their house as well.
oh,
So
cool. That's a nice perk to
absolutely.
have that ability there. Um, the the area that you're from, is it, you said when we were talking earlier about setting up here for the interview, and you're talking about internet connections and stuff, and saying you're a bit out there. What is it, a large area, like population wise, that you're in, or is it very?
Um, the closest city to us, which is Lynchburg, it's getting big. like it's kind of weird. So you've got a downtown section that's old and it's actually starting to grow a little bit. A lot of people are moving down there, a lot of cool restaurants and businesses popping up.
Yeah.
Then you step further out, you've got kind of like the outskirts, the actual, what we call Lynchburg.
Okay.
But then you step outside of Lynchburg and it gets really rural.
Mm.
But you've got different areas, small little towns within 10, 15 minutes of Lynchburg that are also heavily populated too. So our service area is kind of big. You
Okay.
don't just service the town of Lynchburg, you service, Forest, you service Boonesboro, but they're all technically considered Lynchburg. It's just a big area.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I ask is I don't do commercial really anymore myself. I do all mainly residential, but I notice here, because I'm in sort of, big city and crazy amounts of population starting to develop, that also leads to issues like drug problems and stuff. And I've been noticing when I visit commercial properties or parking lots or things like that, the disposal of needles everywhere and in garden beds and things like that. And I always think about the landscaper who has to maintain these properties and trim bushes and walk through, and there's these needles lying around and stuff. And it's like, hey, so it's like one thing I was like, it's not, another issue as these crazy drug problems start to become, I don't know if they're becoming more prevalent. They seem to, at least where I'm from, where, these drugs like fentanyl and things like that are just getting out of hand, and people are doing that. You see that happening more and more. Like, I just noticed the needles everywhere, and I always think about that whole, like, as a landscaper, you have to be so much more cautious now, what you're doing, right? And maybe not so much of an issue in an area where the population is more away from the city. But as you get closer to the city, that becomes more and more of a concern. And so I was just wondering.
Our area is sort of weird because we've got this huge Christian college that is now becoming nationwide, Liberty University.
Okay.
And it's grown so big that now you've got college students, moving into suburbs, renting houses, 9, 10 of them in a house, and people are moving here. The college is doing wonders for our community because it's bringing in a lot of work, a lot of people, a lot of new businesses popping up. But the bigger it gets, the more people come here, and of course, some more work. So I'm not complaining about that much.
Yeah, it's always good. So that this next question is probably the one out of all the questions that would give guests sort of, pause for thought sort of thing where they got to think about it. And that is, share with us a time you struggled in your business and what you learned or did to overcome it.
Well, I think this year was a little bit of a struggle my first year. Because I was fired from my job, I was kind of pushed into this and I wasn't really ready.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 years, I didn't really take it serious and didn't really think of it as being a business.
Okay.
So I didn't do a lot of planning for the future. A lot of the money I made was play money, and it was all gone. And
yeah,
I wish I would have planned more for my first outing, for being pushed out and going at this full time. So this whole year was a struggle as far as cash flow. I had a huge issue with cash flow that I had to work through. And then, we strictly relied on my income, for basically this whole year. And it was tough. So I was trying to grow enough to keep everything afloat here at home, and, but not grow so much that I can't maintain the business.
Mm-hmm.
So this year was a huge learning year for me. I learned how to fail in a lot of ways, and learned a lot of stuff that I'm going to implement next year. So that's probably my biggest thing. It's just
Awesome.
Growing and learning at the same time with stuff.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know what? You never stop learning.
Right.
I'm just finished here. This last season was my 13th year in lawn care full time. And I had things come up that I talked about how this last year was also probably one of my busiest seasons ever to date, and that the website and that the Google, everything's just like clicking on all cylinders. Last year, the phone was ringing. I had to put, notes on my website saying, sorry, I can't answer the phone. Go to the website, request services. I'll get there within 7 days to give you a quote, sort of thing. Like it was just crazy. And through that, I picked up a lot of customers. But they were customers, I was used to these long-term customers that I have that know me. There's that like and trust and stuff. And with this influx of new customers, it was kind of like, um, I don't know if you don't vet them as good as you did in the past or whatever. You're just trying to, keep up, right? So then you get these, a few customers, and I found that I'm running into an issue now with one person in particular who, I've never had issues ever with billing clients and things like that. I've, learned from my mistakes in the past from customers not paying bills. And then I converted my whole business to credit card only and billing at the end. And they have to give me their credit card for me to even start work and all that sort of stuff. And you think, and it goes good for a few years and you think, hey, this is great. It's all working. And then you get to a year like this past year and you have a customer who's now, you're going through it and charging, and then they're coming back to you saying, you weren't here on that day, or why did you charge me for this, or why? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? Of course I was there on that day. Like, how can you not tell? Like, when the
Yeah.
lawn's mowed, especially with a 21-inch mower, you see those stripes on the lawn. Like, it's not hard to, right? So it's been a challenge, right? Because and then the person's coming back asking for a refund on stuff, and it's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, I'm not giving you a refund. I did the work. I was, sweating out there. So there's, don't don't think that there'll be a time that you'll never be learning or that you'll have it figured out, because you won't. You'll
Yeah.
constantly be going through it.
I'm actually doing Blake Hawthorne's playbook that he
Okay.
course that he come up with, and I'm actually waiting until his next class to make some changes in the way I present my services and my contracts and pricing, because he's got 400 accounts. I've got
Hmm.
50. He knows
Yeah.
a little more than I do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
what he does and implement it into what I do.
Yep.
So you never stop learning, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, no, that's the way to do it, right? Is just learn from other guys and just know that there's always going to be stuff to learn. No matter how many years you are in business, how well you think you've got it figured out, or how well it's going for a stretch of time, somebody's going to come along and throw a monkey wrench into that plan. You're going to have to rethink, and that's why I've been thinking now, like this year, I'm at that point where I'm going, okay, so does this mean now that when I first had issues with people not paying, I implemented credit card payments. Now I've got a person who is coming back after saying that I wasn't there and stuff. So does that mean now that I should now start implementing contracts for residential, which I've never done before? And if I do I have to then go back to all of my customers that I've had for years and say, now I need you to sign a contract, even though I've never had an issue with them and stuff, just to make it a thing? So it's always a thing, right? Do you let one person spoil it for the rest of them, or it's tough, right? You're always a thing, right? But that's the life of a entrepreneur. You're always thinking. You wake up thinking about it. You go to bed thinking about it. You're on vacation with your family. You're thinking about it. It's just the way it always is, right?
I think I underestimated the stress when
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, like, I guess it depends. I was about to say is that you yes, you think about all that stuff all the time, and you're always doing it, but you love every minute of it. That's what. But that would be wrong, because it would depend on the individual person, right? Some people are just not cut out for it. But
Yep.
it's one of those things. If you truly, like, I always give example of, by October, I'm hurting. I'm so sore. I'm so tired. And I'm looking forward to that break going end of the season. I need to rest. But it's funny because, have a few weeks off, get into December, and then it's like, man, January 1st, that's it. Like, come on, I want to get mowing grass again. I want to get back out there. This is, you start to miss it, right? And it's like, okay, this is something that you love doing. You love cutting grass, right? So it's like, it's one of those things. It depends on the person, and all that other thinking about it all comes with it, of building your business and stuff. It's because it's what you love doing. You love that life.
And it's funny,
Um,
I've had some time, especially through my wife being down and went through the holidays and Christmas and New Year's. And I've spent a lot of time at home the past couple months.
mm,
And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I've worked some pretty long weeks and some long hours throughout the spring and summer. Yeah, I need this break. And now, like you said, January, I'm sitting here like, all right, we either need some snow so I can go do some work,
yeah,
or it turns springtime because I'm ready to go.
yeah. You just you just get the earning to want to do something. And it's another reason I started doing the podcast and stuff in the off season, and videos, and just adding more and more, because it keeps me in that lawn care world, and think throughout the off season. So what is your favorite thing about being self-employed?
Probably the freedom is my favorite thing. The fact that I ain't got to answer to nobody. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you still have clients that you technically answer to. We still have obligations and stuff that we have to meet. But just I've worked for two corporate companies, two big, Pepsi and Anheuser-Busch, and
Hmm.
it's always been that corporate thing. You're just a number, and I'm just glad to be away from that. So
Yeah.
like wife works. I get up in the morning. I take my kids to school. Some days I pick them up. If I want to start at 6, I start at 6. If I want to start at 8, I start at 8.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you've got some challenges and you've got some headaches being self-employed. You still have to answer to the government and pay your taxes and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but you have that freedom, and that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That is my number one driving factor in it all, is that freedom. Um, in what ways do you market your business, and share your number one marketing tip?
A lot of it is social media. Um,
Okay.
Not a lot of paid social media. I've run a handful of Facebook ads
Okay.
over the past couple of years. No luck with them, but then again,
Okay.
I don't know how to run a Facebook ad
Okay.
effectively. I've started one of the biggest things that's benefited me has been Instagram. I started Instagram a year ago, in intentions of trying to build my business around my area, and
Okay.
it has worked to an extent. Of course, being in the lawn care community, you get more outside of your area followers. But I have landed 2 of my commercial properties are from Instagram, and I've
Okay.
also landed a couple residential properties from Instagram. Um,
Well,
Social media has been huge for my business. That and Facebook.
awesome.
Word of mouth is always going to be a big one for all of us. And then probably my number one marketing tip would be, if you're not on social media, you're missing out. Period.
Okay.
Some
Yeah.
way, somehow, get on social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's I think pretty awesome advice. It's like, it's the day and age now. Everybody's on social media. All those tools, and the neat thing about it is that, for the most part, of course, yes, there is paid ads and stuff that you can try and use, but you can do a lot without doing any of that. Just having the account, just posting those pictures and being involved. I talked about this. I think I talked about this lately. At least I talked about it in my own head. If I didn't talk about it in a video, is I see a lot of guys, particularly with Instagram accounts for their business, but they'll share stuff that isn't business related. I remember, for example, one guy, and it would be like a Friday night, and he'd have, it's his company name, and he's listening to like gangster rap music, like really nasty language, and he's drinking all these open bottles of booze, and he's getting wrecked. And it's like, this is your business account. You're sharing this with your, like, hey, I don't know, maybe that's your clientele that you're, maybe it works for you. I don't know, but it just seems kind of counterintuitive to me to do that, right? And then, or the other thing that I see people doing is that they have their business Instagram account and they have it on private. And it's like, why do you have it on private? You don't want to make people jump through hoops to look at your photos if you're trying to use this to grow your business, right? Keep your personal account on private. Your business account should be completely public. Let people see what you're doing. Yeah. So, and you were saying that the paid Facebook ads weren't working too well for you.
Yeah, I've got like I listen to a lot of Gary Vee,
Yeah.
and you know, they work. I just don't know how to actually. I've never taken the time to sit down to learn how to run an effective Facebook ad.
Yeah.
I've got a good friend that's all he does is advertising. He advertises auctions and
Okay.
just Facebook, and he knows how to make them work. And I'm available to. He's available to ask for me to ask any questions I have. But I've had good luck. Probably 90% of my work's been word of mouth. So
Yeah.
um, I have done some other avenues. I advertise with a local radio station. It's a Christian radio station,
Okay.
and I like what they stand for, and I like their actual. I've actually listened to the radio station, but
Okay.
I've done some advertising with them this year. Signed a 6-month contract, and then I've done some additional advertising in exchange for work. I took care of the property, so I had a lot of money being paid out each month. The only phone call I got was a customer that I had let go last year.
Mm.
So I'm like, man, I've been spent, 4 figures in advertising this year, and I haven't got any return on it. So
Yeah.
I actually let the contract go this year and won't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I feel sort of bad almost for those traditional advertising and marketing things. I've told a story before about spending in past businesses before the internet and stuff like that, having like a Yellow Pages ad for a business that I had, and it was like hundreds of dollars a month for this tiny little square, ad, little display ad of the business, or running a newspaper ad in like the classified section of like services and stuff, and paying for that for months when I first started my business, and getting one call for one quote for a person who was really just price shopping. And I was in this contract to pay for this ad for months, and then when it finally ended, I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that. And at the same time, I was also doing the Google My Business, which is now Google, or Google My Business now. It used to be called Google Places, which is free to have a listing on Google. And that was getting me, a ton of inquiries every month, right? So this newspaper, to this day, it's been like 10 years since I last did that ad in that newspaper. And every year in the spring, they always email me saying, hey, we're running the thing. Do you want to run? I was like, no. I already explained to you guys, I'm not going to pay you and get thing when on the internet, it's for free. Like, I just put it on Google and the calls come in. And with Google, the crazy thing is once you start getting that momentum, you're only one person. And that's what I ran into last year. It was just too many calls coming in, and I was like, I can't answer the phone all the time, otherwise I don't get the work done and all that stuff. So it was like, and scheduling things. And that's why I sort of came up with the whole system of, hey, leave a message on the website, request a quote, 7 days, I'll, get the thing, because then that gives me time to, if they're calling from an area I just serviced yesterday, I don't want to have to drive back there just for what quote. So they'll have to wait till the next mowing cycle when I'm in that neighborhood. And it was a pattern. It was just starting to, it was like a finely greased machine by the mid-season. I was like, this is working great. Like, people are leaving their information, their addresses, they're checking off all the boxes, letting me know if there's dogs during the day and giving me permission to walk in their backyard and all that sort of stuff. I'm just showing up, taking a look, emailing them a quote, and if they want to go ahead with it, they're giving me their credit card number. And I was like, this is fantastic. It's like having a secretary 24 hours a day, having all this working. But there's all things you start to learn and grow into, and adapt to what's right for your particular business.
Just talking about the newspaper, our local newspaper does a thing every year called the Best of.
Oh yeah.
They have all the local businesses, and then you get voted. Well, lo and behold, I won this year for
Oh wow.
Lawn Landscape. So it made me so mad. In order to attend the dinner, you got 2 tickets, but you had to buy a package in order to get your tickets. And it included, the lowest package was like $400, and it included a quarter-page ad, and then of course you got, you see the little plaque in the background. You get the little plaque and everything, and I'm like, I really don't want to pay this money. Can I just buy the plaque so I can take a picture of it and post it to Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah.
That's going to give me way more business than it
Yeah.
needs. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's kind of a roundabout scheme almost, right? To get people to come and do their thing. But that's awesome. So one of the most common questions I get in my business is, what do I do in the winter? So is there a winter or off season in your business? And if so, what do you do in the winter? And, if you don't have anything that's work related, then you can talk about a hobby or anything like that as well.
Yes, my business is seasonal in this area. And then we're weird because we get all 4 seasons in like varying degrees. We could go through wintertime and it'd be barren and no snow, or we can get as much snow as them boys in Michigan did. Like we got inches of snow in December, first part of December. I did pick up a snowblower this year to do some driveways with. Unfortunately, I haven't made any more money with it since December. And then I'm kind of fiending for a snowplow on the truck. We don't, like I said, we can get a lot of snow, we can get no snow. So if I can get into a plow kind of cheap for next year, then I'll do it. But I'm not going to have one of those Brian lawn maintenance setups, I'll stick to my cheap truck and a cheap plow and go make some money. That way it don't hurt. So, and then I do some of my hobbies in the winter time. I like to shoot pool.
Cool.
This time of the year is a good time to play in leagues and go shoot some tournaments because I actually got some time to enjoy it. So
nice. That's awesome. I used to have a pool table in my previous house. It was it had like a games room area. I had a good room for it. Then we moved and the new house doesn't have the space, so I had to sell the pool table. But it was fun, definitely, especially when family get-togethers and barbecues and stuff. There'd be the big pool tournament and stuff in the house. It was a lot of fun doing that. So what are your future plans or goals for your business?
I didn't really have a plan as of like 3 months ago. I've seen a lot of guys in my area just take on work, and then they can't handle it, don't know what to do. So after seeing that, and after hearing something that Naylor Taliaferro, the lawn care rookie, he had said about a 5-year plan. And when he talked about the 5-year plan, it made me reevaluate what I was doing. So my plan now is within the next 3 to 5 years is solidify my business by myself, get everything I need in order to sustain a full-time employee, and then take that step, and then just keep repeating the process. Because I've learned very quickly that it's not a marathon. I mean, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, I'm trying to achieve these big dreams in my first 6 months in business, and it just ain't happening. So,
Yeah.
like one of my goals this year is to buy a dump trailer. I do enough landscaping work to want a dump trailer.
Okay.
So to help me save that time, that'll be one of my short-term goals for this year. So
Yeah.
Just grow on my terms. I don't want to let overwhelming amounts of work dictate how I grow and how fast I grow.
Okay.
If it happens, it happens. But I just don't want to get in over my head. I've seen it too many times. We've got big guys around here that have folded up or have their businesses for sale because they've got so much work that the turnover rate is so bad they can't find employees. So what do? They screw this. I'm going to work somewhere else and get rid of this headache. And now you got businesses that have been in business for 20 years for sale right now.
Yeah.
Because of that reason. I don't want to be that guy. Plus, the economy's going to take a downturn at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be prepared for that. Especially being in business, like no debt, no not owing everybody and brother money.
Yeah.
So when that time comes, I ain't got to worry.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds like you got these past 3 months. You've been doing a lot of thinking and getting that all sorted. So thanks to Naylor for that inspiration on the 5-year plan. So I'm sure that was obviously a video of his that you saw.
It was, I think it might have been a video. I want to say it was on his Facebook. See, I haven't met him.
Okay.
I've seen him at the GIE. And of course, every time I run into him, he was just overloaded with people and talking. But he lives like an hour and a half from me.
Okay.
So I actually need to reach out to him and set up a meetup because where he lives, I've got family there, so it'll be twofold. I can go visit my family and go meet him.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get up with him at some point, but it was one of his videos, a YouTube video or an Instagram post or something that.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. It sounds like you got a lot of value from that. It's giving you a whole new direction. So that's fantastic in getting you prepared for what the future holds. So next question is one you might need to think about as well, actually, a little bit. It's just I shared a little bit about the story of me going to quote that customer, and he ended up fainting when I opened the door and thing. And I would say that was the weirdest thing that I've ever seen or happened to me in my business. So what would you say is the weirdest thing or craziest thing that's ever happened to you or you've seen in your business?
I haven't had nothing super crazy happen like that.
Okay.
Probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me, though. I ended up, the end of last year, I ended up picking some properties up off a buddy that was that was just hanging it up and being done with it. It was a side gig ready to be done. And in the meantime, I was taking care of the properties with his equipment because it had gotten so far behind. And I was doing my stuff, going to get his equipment, and then I'd go do the handful of properties that I was ultimately going to take over for him. So the first time, it was 3 apartment buildings, small little, like duplexes, stuff like that. And I thought it was 2. It was actually 3. So on one of them, I actually mowed the wrong property.
Oh.
I mean, it was to the T.
Yeah.
And then I leave, and he calls me. I had a question about it. And he's like, I said, it is the one in the back, right, with the 2 houses? And he said, no, it's the one up front with only the 1 house. So I had to turn around and go back and mow the actual right property. So somebody got and then in that same set of buildings, there was a 3rd property that I did not know about. So I had been mowing 2 of the 3 properties for a month. And then he's like, hey, have you been by such and such? And I'm like, well, where is this place at? So finally I got straight and ended up taking over all the properties. But that's probably the funniest thing I've done. I had no weird encounters or finding needles or people passing.
Nothing like that.
But maybe the occasional customer hitting on you. I'm sure that happens.
Yeah, there you go. that reminded you're talking about missing one house and stuff like that. I had one last year that reminded me. It was almost I'll relate it to a story earlier in my life, but the part last year was a customer that came up to me while I was mowing a house. It was a walk up, like a neighbor, and he said he was going on vacation for a month and asked if I could mow his property so that the house looked lived in and stuff while they were away. So I said sure. So he walked me around his property, and he had a fairly good sized front yard. There was a side yard. Then he opens the gate to the backyard, and there was this backyard, and then he had a deck in the middle of the yard that covered, like, from the fence, neighbor's fence, all the way to the garage. And then there was another area of grass behind that deck. So he showed me all of that. And this was a few weeks until he was going to actually be leaving, about 3 weeks or so. So as we said, okay, we settled on a price. He gave me his credit card number, all that stuff. So then about a week before, he walks up to me and he reminds me, hey, I'm going away next week. You're all good to go. I said, yeah, no problem, right? So he leaves, and I start mowing his property for that month, and all is good. And then he comes back a month later, and the following week he finds me again, and he's like, how come you didn't mow the backyard? I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't mow the backyard. I mow your backyard every week when I'm there. I'm like, thinking this guy's on crack or something, right? So he's like, well, come over. So I go over there, and, we go to the front yard. He opens the back gate. I'm looking. I'm like, what are you talking? The yard's mowed. He's like, no. The backyard behind the deck. And I was like, and I looked and go, oh, crap. I forgot there was a yard back there. And it was like, a foot and a half tall now, the grass there, but you couldn't see it. When you opened the gate and you were looking at the yard, all you saw was the deck. And I totally forgot that there was this patch. So stuff happens. But how that story kind of relates to a non-mowing incident that happened to me when I was younger. When I was 13, I worked at Dairy Queen, one of my first jobs in like a fast food restaurant. And I was like the line cook making the burgers. And they had a burger called the Triple, where it was like 3 patties of meat. And somebody ordered 3 of them. And so I made them and got them all packaged up and gave them away. And the guy literally 10 minutes later comes back and he's like, hey, where's the beef? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's no meat in any of them. There's supposed to be 3 patties in all of them. I forgot to put any of the meat. And I looked, and the little conveyor belt where you put like the meat patties, it would move, and once they would cook, they would fall down into this little tray. And I look, and all the patties were all lined up there. I forgot. I made 3 triple burgers with no triple meat on it. So I was like, man, stuff just happens sometimes, right? It's just that's life. You live and learn, and then you laugh about it after.
Should have went to Arby's. They have the meats.
There you go. So this next question is one that I love asking as well. And it's basically, I want you to share your best piece of advice with someone just starting out in business. But I want you to answer it from the perspective of, this is a person that you know really well and that you only want the best for. You don't want to steer them wrong. You don't want to give them fake advice or anything like that. Like, you genuinely, you want to see this person succeed. What would you tell them about starting a lawn care business?
Well, I'm still learning myself, but it is a few things that have happened to me that I would like other people not to have to deal with. Cash flow is huge. Mm-hmm. Make sure you've got the stuff in place via credit cards, via whatever, to collect money and collect it fast, because you can't operate when you get to the end of the month and you're owed $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever your number is. I mean, you can't function when you got that much money sitting out there on the table. And one thing that helped me achieve better cash flow was a CRM software. Okay. So probably my biggest, and I tell a lot of people this too. Like, I met this kid at GIE that's just starting off, And my biggest advice to him was use some sort of software. There is a good free one out there. There's some
Yep.
great paid ones out there. You know, something, QuickBooks, whatever. Just use it because it will save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and it'll just set you up for an easier future.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest advice is just get everything together on the back end and make your office life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And everything else be a little bit easier too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an awesome piece of advice and one that not anybody else has shared in any interview that I've done. So that's awesome. And like you said, nowadays, even you mentioned free software like I guess Yard Books and stuff like that. There's no excuse. Like there's, the excuse of I can't afford it or anything like that. Like it's free that you can use and it's fantastic software. And if you want to get into paid ones and go more customized and things like that, that's cool too. But the free one is fantastic.
I mean, I use the paid for version of Yardbook, but it integrates with QuickBooks and a couple other features. But I remember years ago, I've always been a stickler for like apps and electronics and gadgets and whatever else.
Yeah.
And, so back when I first started, I was like, all right, this got to be something. I was just like, okay, let me see if I can find something cool, an app that'll help me with my business. And I found Yardbook, but I didn't take the time to learn it, 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I wish I did. So then I had to actually learn Yardbook this year, and it's been huge. I really like Jobber, but the added features that I like with Jobber won't really apply to me being a solo guy. Those features are kind of set up for employees.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But in the meantime, Yardbook does great for me.
Awesome. Yeah, and it probably does is perfect fit for a lot of guys out there. So we're going to transition now to your Instagram channel or Instagram account. So you've got just over 1,000 followers now. I think you mentioned that you started with the Instagram to help market your business. And that, so how do you use social media there? And you talked about Facebook and stuff as well, to grow your landscape business. Or do you use it for other opportunities?
That's funny. So when I first listening to you, I've been listening to you for a while, and I've heard about Instagram from a lot of people you interviewed in the past had followings on YouTube or Instagram or be whatnot, and I seen all the cool stuff that they were doing, all the free stuff they were getting, and like for a split second, that was my motive, and I quickly had to reel that back in and say, no, this is not my motive. I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, for the wrong thing. So I reevaluated why I started an Instagram page.
Yeah.
And now I show some of my work. I show a little bit of my daily life, what I'm doing today, because some people are genuinely interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's cool to see what others are doing in your industry. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where exactly the Instagram's going just yet. It's kind of been a slow go for me. I don't know if it's that I don't know how to use it or what, but I mean, it's taken me a year to get those 1,000 followers, which is fine. It's not about the number.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for what I want to do it for. If it only works for 200 followers, then so be it.
Yeah.
My wife bought me a GoPro for Christmas, and
nice.
I'm trying to learn it. And I'm actually working on building me a computer to actually do some editing software with, because I have nothing in my house with enough storage or enough power to run editing software. I don't know where that's going just yet. I kind of feel like YouTube's a little crowded.
Okay.
And I don't know where I would fit in because I'm new. So because of that reason, I'm like, should I do YouTube? Should I not? Like, I don't want to just check a box to say I have a YouTube channel. I want it to mean something. I want it to actually to achieve something.
Yeah.
I just don't know how that looks right now. So for the meantime, I'm sticking to what works. And go from there.
Yeah. I would say, just listening to you talk there, YouTube, as I'm learning, is a ton of work. It's insane amounts of work. So you have to be, you don't have to be, but I would say it helps if you're a nerd about that sort of stuff. Like you love the process of it. And I'm learning that. I think I've talked about somebody else I interviewed saying that I'm actually starting to enjoy YouTube more than the podcast. And I don't know if it's because I've just been doing the podcast on for so many years now, every Tuesday, and it's kind of like on autopilot, where this is like a new challenge and learning all that sort of stuff. But definitely doing it for that. And I would say you talked about you don't know where you would fit in. I would say that there's always an audience because everybody is going to relate to everybody else differently. Just because, and it's the same argument. People ask, I've literally had, and I've talked about this before, I've had people email me asking me for permission to start a podcast. And I'm like, I don't own podcasting. You want to start a podcast on lawn care, go start a podcast. I guarantee you, you will get people listening to your podcast because I know for sure not everybody listens to my podcast. I know for sure that there's people that download my podcast and listen to 1 or 2 episodes and don't like it. And it could be for whatever reason. It could be because I'm older. It could be because I'm not American. It could be all sorts of things. Everybody's got, you just think about your own relationships. And when you can say that you like everybody, but when you look at yourself inwards, there's always a time where you meet somebody and you're turned off by them. And it could be so the thing is that there's 6 billion people on this planet. There's going to be people that really like Cody Johnson on YouTube and that are going to relate to you, whether it's because of your beard, whether it's because of whatever reason, because of the area that you're servicing your lawn care business in is similar to what they're servicing. When I'm talking about and doing videos on YouTube and I'm showing mowing lawns with a 21-inch mower in the rain, well, that's not really going to appeal to people in a different part. So I would say don't ever question whether you would fit in and that the space is overcrowded, because yes, there's a lot of YouTube channels, but there's no Cody Johnson channel.
Exactly.
And that's what's missing. And as long as it's something you would enjoy doing, then that's reason enough because the audience will follow. As long as you're authentic and all that.
I don't know that I'll enjoy it just yet. I do.
Yeah.
I've made a couple little picture edits with the GoPro app, little editing app, and I've found myself enjoying, picking the right song for the thing. I think I will enjoy it. I haven't dove into it yet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I hear the amount of work from like you and Brian, and the amount of time and effort they spend, having these huge channels. I don't know if I want nothing that big, but we'll see what happens. I've got to go now.
There you go. That's the first step. That's the first step, right? And like I said, you may decide that you don't enjoy it after and stuff, and you don't have to I like the process. I like learning about the tags and the keywords and the analytics behind YouTube. A lot of people, that's not their cup of tea, and they'll put a video out, once every couple months and stuff, and that's enough. It's completely up to what you want and what your expectations are, basically. But I guess my whole point there is that don't ever think that there's not a space or that your voice is not valued in that space, because there's always going to be somebody that can relate to your story and they're waiting for that Cody Johnson to put out their story, and they're going to be like, you know, just like you came on here and you were saying, you know, I've listened to your podcast for thing, right? You're going to have that person come up to you and go, dude, like, I so relate to your story. It's exactly what I'm going through. It's, you know, it's amazing what little things people share, even on the podcast. That is, you know, I'll get comments from people saying like, that was an awesome podcast. Like, that's just what I'm going through. Like that, what that person was talking about and all that. So is
I had I had a kid call me one day, actually call me on my phone, which, you know, my information, my business information, which has my phone number attached to it, ain't private. But he was from Ohio.
okay.
And he's like, hey, my name's such and such, and I follow you on Instagram. The kid's been in business, I say kid because he was younger than me, but he's been in business longer than I have.
Okay.
But he called me looking to ask questions and looking for some advice. And I was able to help him because in his area, no other local business would give him the time of day to answer the questions that he had. And it won't nothing crazy. It won't, you know, how are you pricing this? How are you pricing that? It was just something like he had a question about software, and I was able to help him, and he's now using software. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's always an audience. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, we're gonna be looking out for those. You know, at least a few videos this coming season from you. So, last question. So, if people want to follow you on Instagram, how can they find you?
All right, Instagram is @EZ with a Z.
Awesome. So I will put a link to that in the podcast show notes as well as the video description if people are watching this on the YouTube version of it. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time and coming on to the podcast. I really do appreciate it, as well as appreciate you being patient with me lining them up this winter. Like I said, I think you contacted me a few months earlier. It was already, I think it was in October or something originally last year when you contacted me. So thanks for sticking in there and being available, especially on such short notice, because I think I called you yesterday and said, hey, are you available in the morning tomorrow and stuff? I had an opening come up, so I was like, that'd be perfect.
The kids were out of school yesterday. Luckily, they went back today. So
there you go. It worked out very, it was meant to be. That's awesome. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.